This is an interview with Tetsuya Nomura, which was done by Young Jump. I have went ahead and took the liberty of translating this interview. I translated it through ChatGPT. So I just want to let you guys know that really quickly, that I did do that through ChatGPT. And as a result, this is machine-based translation. And so please realize that there could be some nuance that is not quite correct or that is not 100%. And so as a result, it may not be 100% perfect. However, I use ChatGPT over Google Translate because Google Translate is notoriously not that great. However, GPT translation is pretty good. GPT translation can be almost completely accurate in a lot of cases. It's really good. I don't think anything ever beats a human when it comes to translation. However, GPT translation is probably the best machine translation you can get. And in this interview, Nomura has even thrown out that potentially he's thinking about retiring. He's even thrown out that Kingdom Hearts 4 could be leading into the finale of the series. We got quite a bit to dive into today with this interview. So let's just go ahead and dive into this interview here because there's a lot of interesting things to discuss about Final Fantasy VII and about Kingdom Hearts, right? To commemorate the 45th anniversary of Young Jump, we're conducting a special series of interviews. In this second part, we dive into an exclusive interview with Tetsuya Nomura, the creative director behind the highly anticipated title Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, released in 2024. We'll explore the appeal of this creator, known for producing overwhelmingly unique and innovative works. So the long-awaited second installment of Final Fantasy VII Remake Trilogy, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, was released this year. Could you tell us about your goals that you hope to achieve with this work? Rather than the overall goal of Final Fantasy VII Remake Trilogy is to correct and unify distorted perceptions. In most cases, a remake typically means improving the visuals while keeping the game and the story the same. However, over 20 years have passed since the original. Simply making the graphics prettier would not fit today's era. I also think players' memories of the original have been altered by nostalgia. I believe there are many people who continuously played Final Fantasy VII over those 22 years. Their memories of the game have gradually shifted in different ways for each individual. Final Fantasy VII has had various spin-offs, which sometimes depict scenes differently from the original. As a result, I believe there is a subtle distortion of perception in the memories of players. You play it again now, does this seem like this? I remember it differently. I feel this way too, but our writer Nojima was especially concerned about this distortion of perception. We wanted to bring everything together in one unified vision. Let me zoom in on this really quickly so you guys can see it a little bit better, and I'll make myself a little bit smaller. You know, this is something that is really true, right? Like just taking Crisis Core alone, there is a drastic difference between some of these scenes, right? Like some of the scenes in Crisis Core, way different than the scenes that are in, Final Fantasy VII Original. And so because of that, there's just this discrepancy. There are so many different versions of the Nibelheim incident, for example, right? I think there's the OG, there's the Last Order, which is the anime, there's Crisis Core, and then now there is Final Fantasy VII. That's 4 different interpretations, I believe. And hell, there might even be a 5th one out there. I don't know. And again, like he mentions, there has just been so many different versions of Final Fantasy VII's key events that you need to bring cohesion to all of them. So that's a statement that I really get. And I think they talk more about that here in the next part of the interview. That distortion of perception due to the spin-off works is something I personally felt as well. How is this distortion expressed within the game? In the scene near the end of the game, where Sephiroth appears in a white space and Cloud flies toward him, various visions can be seen. Among those visions, there are probably elements of the Final Fantasy VII world that exist within the player's heart. Each one is a version of Final Fantasy VII, but they're all slightly different. It's like there are multiple parallel worlds. For example, in World A, this character is alive, but in World B, they aren't. While the differences are made clear in that way, players have different interpretations, and over time, memories have been rewritten, or spin-offs have caused some discrepancies. In this work too, we let players experience several different layers of the world. Those visions represent such ideas. Oh boy. That's actually a pretty loaded statement. He's essentially saying here that these different worlds almost kind of represent different perceptions of Final Fantasy VII and different desires with Final Fantasy VII. That's really interesting. At a meta, this is kind of like what the conclusion I've come to with like what FF7 Re-Trilogy is doing, right? Is that it is a remake that is aware of the fact that it's a remake. Like fundamentally, that's what this is. And he kind of spells this out, right? The white space where Cloud is going through essentially the multiverse and he can see all these different versions of Final Fantasy VII. He's basically taking all these different people's memories of what Final Fantasy VII is, and everyone has a very, very, very different memory of Final Fantasy VII, and he's expressing all of them. Right? He's trying to express all of them in one story. That's a very interesting concept, I think. Final Fantasy VII is really interesting in the way that I don't think I've seen another game where so many people have so many different interpretations. Like your Final Fantasy VII and my Final Fantasy VII are probably not the same. A lot of people's perception of FF7, for example, just like arbitrarily, will be framed around like Kingdom Hearts 2 and Cloud's appearance in like Kingdom Hearts 2. Some people came in Advent Children, right? And so their perception of these characters is based on AC or Crisis Core. A lot of these different pieces of media have different perceptions of these characters. And then you have, you know, if you're like 30 plus, well, your perception of Final Fantasy VII is very much primed around the original. But even if your perception is fixed around the original, you know, the original FF7 is almost 3 decades old now. As a result, even your perception gets kind of warped over time due to the fact that you've lived a lot of years probably since you first played it. And you're thinking back on events from a long time ago, you know, even just remembering events from a few weeks or a few years ago, you know, it's very different. And so all of this is to say that everyone's belief about like what Final Fantasy VII is or how it's supposed to be is fundamentally different depending on who you are. Every copy of Final Fantasy VII is personalized. Yeah, every copy is personalized. It really is. It is unironically the Super Mario 64 meme, like 100%. Next, we're talking about based. We're talking about the world map. The world map has returned in Rebirth. Were you able to finally realize your ideal vision of the world map? Nomura says, yes, that's right. This is truly thanks to the hard work of the dev team. I think we're able to present a world map that everyone, including us, has dreamed of for Final Fantasy VII. Honestly, not just Final Fantasy VII. It's kind of the world map I have dreamed of for like HD modern Final Fantasy. It is exactly what I want the world map to be. Now, if only you can put a flyable airship on top of it, I will be complete as a human being. That's all I want. Give me that world map again and give it to me with an airship, and that's exactly what we're going to be getting Final Fantasy VII Part 3. Continuing onward, he says, the game is rich with mini-games, exploration elements. Was your intent to encourage players to explore every corner of the vast world map? Yes, that's exactly the case. Without a goal, there would be no motivation to explore every corner, and players would end up wandering aimlessly through a large world. That would defeat the purpose of having a vast world map. So we packed in all sorts of elements, ensuring that as players explore, they'll make discoveries and feel rewarded for their efforts. And I do think that that did end up being the case with Rebirth, and I feel like it's going to be even more with the next game for sure. In manga, the protagonist is not often portrayed as a handsome character, but in the works you create, there seem to be so many cool looking characters. What do you consider when designing the protagonist? Huh? Do manga not make handsome protagonists? Or protagonist handsome? For example, Naruto or Luffy aren't treated as handsome characters in the story, right? The reason I make protagonists cool stems from an experience I had in high school. One of my classmates was playing a game, and the protagonist of that game wasn't cool. My friend said something like, "Why do I have to be ugly even in a game?" I really wonder what game this was that left a big impression on me. From that experience, I came to the conclusion that in games, people want to look cool. That's how I design protagonists. Okay, I agree with this. I do not want my self-insert for a story to just be a regular guy. If I'm like living a fantasy through a character, I want to be hot in the story. I want to be a cool guy, right? Like I want to be awesome. Is that just me? I don't know. Like I don't really see a point in not being cool and handsome in like a game where I'm supposed to be, you know, trying to immerse myself in the character. And like the character is like supposed to be like an unattractive, like ugly guy. Like I want to be cool. I want to be Giga Chad in the game. Somewhere in between a regular guy and a supermodel, Leon Kennedy. Right? Like that's what I want to be, right? Like I want to be someone cool. I don't want to be some guy that's not cool. Do you have a favorite antagonist? Sephiroth is the most beloved character, but he's also a handsome guy. Well, I really like Organization 13, but I feel that without their unique personalities, their designs wouldn't have stood out much. It's the combination of inner traits and outward appearance that creates strong character presence. Their personalities are indeed captivating. Out of the members of Organization 13, who is your favorite? I'd have to say Sigbard and Luxord. I really like them. Older characters working behind the scenes, huh? Laughs. In Rebirth, the party members are finally assembled, and the interactions between the characters are a major highlight. What do you think is the reason for the enduring popularity of Final Fantasy VII's characters? As I mentioned before, I can only experiment with the villains, but Final Fantasy VII was the first project I was deeply involved in both the personality and design of the characters. Because I was still young back then, I didn't fully understand the conventions of character designs, so I just wanted to make as many unique characters as possible. If you think about it, Final Fantasy VII has a really strange party, doesn't it? I mean, not wrong, but I like it. Like the interviewer says here, that's true. Even their silhouettes are so distinctive. I think that's what made them so appealing. For example, Red 13 is a four-legged character, but if you think about it, having a quadrupedal character in the party changes the way the game's systems control. You wouldn't normally add a four-legged character to the party. Kate Sith and the big Moogle he rides. Those count as two characters, right? There are a lot of things like that, which I would call the recklessness of youth. Guys, for game development, this is kind of a big no-no, right? Like this is kind of a thing that you don't really do. And the reason that you don't really do that is because you kind of have to create entirely different animation systems just for Red 13, right? Like you have to have stuff in place just to handle him as a quadrupedal character that has to move around and do that type of stuff, right? In an action game, that's really difficult to do, right? It wasn't so bad in a turn-based game back in the day, but nowadays in a modern game, a modern Unreal Engine game, it's actually quite troubling. That's kind of what he means when he says that, like, oh yeah, you know, you really wouldn't want to do that nowadays. That's not what I would do if I was approaching this, because I'd be considering, you know, the technology and what we have to implement. But back then, you know, when things were simpler and when combat was turn-based and that wasn't a huge deal, you were able to do that sort of thing. So Teruyuki Endo is an absolute prodigy in how he melds Kate Sith and Red 13's gameplay and characters. I remember a previous interview back in FF7 Remake that Tifa's combat was the most difficult character to design for, given how she has to differ from being a melee than Cloud. Yeah, like it's really cool how all those different characters functions, and that's like one of the things like why I say you can take Final Fantasy VII combat, like re-trilogy combat, and then put it in the Final Fantasy 17, because I feel like just having different characters fundamentally changes everything about the way that combat system is, while still keeping the foundations of hit the enemy, build up ATB, and then unleash that ATB. It's hard for that combat system to really get stale when just literally changing the character that you control is going to be something that fundamentally alters the way that combat system works, right? So I feel like that combat system has enough gas in it to go for a really, really long time, and I think that they should stick with it. But knowing Square, they'll pump and dump like they typically do. So Aerith and Tifa are considered dual heroines in Final Fantasy VII, but how did the creation of these two characters come about? I've never talked about this before. Nomura says Aerith was created first, but her personality was actually closer to Tifa's at the time. However, I didn't want to follow the traditional pattern, so I decided to go with dual heroines. At that point, the personality had been embedded in Aerith, split off, and gave birth to Tifa. Aerith has a fate she's carrying in the story, so her inner traits to emphasize that. That is really cool. I don't think that last bit about a lot of the personality traits of Tifa actually belonging to Aerith and then them eventually becoming two characters, I don't know if that's ever been discussed before. I cannot recall any interview that's ever actually mentioned that. So that is actually some big information in terms of like how those two characters came to be for FF7 lore heads. That's really fascinating. And says, that's quite a rare insight. How did you approach their designs? I aimed to create a bright and glamorous heroine. Since Cloud is somewhat a shadowy character and Barrett is a tough and rugged, I wanted her to add a touch of color. So I gave her a red outfit and a light colored hair. Back then, we couldn't depict soft textures or fine hair details in polygon games, so we decided to tie her hair up. Yeah, that makes sense. A lot of characters back then had tied up hair or very short hair because that was just easier to render on PS1 and PS2. That's an interesting backstory, Labs. With Tifa, we couldn't tie her hair the same way, so we made it long, which was harder to animate. But even Tifa has her hair tied at the end. This was also for ease of motion control. Yep, really easy to do it back then on those polygonal graphics compared to like what we have now. So that's why it was kind of a common hairstyle to see back then for a lot of characters. It was just easier for the devs to be able to do their thing. What do you consider to be your strength or unique style in character design? He says, to be honest, I'm not really sure. When people draw famous characters, they often try to make them look like originals, like the originals. No one really drew characters to look like mine. Even I find it difficult to recreate my own designs when you ask to draw them again. That's so funny. However, I'm particular about the details, like a certain color or shape was chosen. When I check other people's designs, I'll ask things like, why is this part shaped like this? It might be something others don't pay attention to. I believe those subtle settings are part of the character's personality, and in the end, contribute to the game's overall story. Overall game and story, sorry. I think my designs only exist because they're part of exists. That's really interesting because I feel like every time you see Nomura draw a new character, that is the case. I feel like every time he does draw a character again, the character looks different than how they typically looked. He does not draw the same character the same way twice. And now it makes perfect sense as to why he doesn't do that. And I kind of get that. Him saying that makes so much sense because I think he stated before he would have done manga if he wasn't a dev. And in manga, that's really important. That makes so much sense. He would have been a mangaka. I 100% believe if he wasn't a dev, for sure. It would have been like where he fitted in the best, I think. When designing costumes, do you also think about how they'll be put on or taken off? Oh boy, I really want to know this one. I do have an idea in mind, but you probably wouldn't notice just by looking at it. I feel like that's cap. That's cap, dog. That's cap. That's cap. He does not. Okay, bro, tell me how Lulu puts on her dress. If that's real. Tell me how Lulu puts on her clothes. If that's real. That's not real. Bro's capping right now. When cosplay first started to become popular, I used to think no one could cosplay as this while drawing. But I was surprised to see that some people actually managed to do it. Lulu, bro. Lulu in particular. I'm telling you. With the rise of social media, it's become easier to see players' thoughts and theories. As a creator, to what extent do you think players' opinions should be reflected in the story? Now, this is a good question. Very much so with Final Fantasy VII Retrilogy. Players' perspectives are fascinating and often enlightening, so I do pay a lot of attention to them. As for incorporating their feedback, I don't think you need to do it at all, but there is something worth implementing. I think it should be done. If you go the complete opposite direction of what players want and create a scenario where a beloved character suffers, it's not ideal for the players emotionally. Oh, I have to push back on that. That being said, simply responding to, we want this, with, okay, we'll do that, it isn't right either. The important thing is to carefully craft the story with clear intention rather than just catering to players' desires. As for Aerith in the remake trilogy, I can't discuss that just yet. Would have to push back on, however, if you go in the opposite direction of what players want and create a scenario where a beloved character suffers, it's not ideal for the players emotionally. I would have to push back on that part. Let the players suffer. Dog, this is life. Let the characters suffer. A lot of the times, I think a lot of like favorite stories of mine have come from my favorite characters not really getting the happiest endings or the happiest things happening to them. And sometimes they've had to kind of tremendously suffer in ways that you don't want to see them, but that's what kind of furthers the narrative and furthers that character, ultimately seals the deal. And so sometimes a beloved character does die, and it sucks. And it sucks a lot. And we wish for that character to not die. We really don't want them to die. At the same time, you know, you as the creative have to sometimes double down on that and seal that in, because it also is what makes the story immortal in a way, if that makes sense. You become obsessed with it, right? Like, that's why Aerith's death is such an important big deal for us. We obsess over it. We think about all the possibilities. Like, would it be possible to save the planet if she still died, you know? all these other different things. And so I do think that, you know, characters do have to die sometimes. Even our favorites, they do have to suffer sometimes, and you do have to like not go back on that. How far ahead is the vision for the Kingdom Hearts series? Works you handle often have complex settings. How do you organize and convey them to the dev team? I don't think the team fully understands everything either. Sometimes, during voice recording sessions, the staff, other than myself, explains the settings and characters to the voice actors. They'll ask me, "This is right, isn't it?" And I'll respond, no, that's wrong. And so there's a back and forth like that, he laughs. But it can't be helped because I'm the only one who understands even the parts of the characters that haven't been shown. The complicated storylines are something I constantly shift around and think through on my own. On the other hand, I encourage staff to actively raise questions or point out things to me. I really don't know what to say about that one, right? Because it's very hard. It's very hard. I'm actually more curious to hear what you guys have to say about that one, because I could go either way on that answer. In some ways, I'm like, okay, well, he's in our tour, right? And so, you know, only he gets the vision. I'm sure that Kojima is probably like that too. And then in other ways, I'm kind of like, wait, so the staff also isn't really quite sure, like fully sure of like what's going on in the story. So I actually don't know how to feel about that one, purely because I'm not the guy like working on the games. And so if I was on the team, I'm sure I would feel differently about it than either way I feel now. But I'm like, I don't know. That's kind of a wild answer, right? It almost makes me wonder too, like with something like Final Fantasy VII Re-Trilogy, do like only him and Nojima like really understand fully like what's going on there, and like everyone else kind of vaguely understand, but they're like the only two that are absolute lore masters on everything that's happening there. Lost in translation, maybe. I don't know. That one's kind of an interesting question. Sometimes I wonder if even Hamaguchi understands the story. I don't know. Like actually to like what extent. I'm sure Hamaguchi has a good grasp on things, but that does make me wonder. You have something like a reference document for the settings. I personally take notes so I don't forget things, such as footsteps of the key characters, even covering periods not shown in the story, and ideas for future developments. So these notes aren't shared with the team. No, I keep them secret. However, when necessary, I'll suddenly write out a bunch of explanations about the setting in the middle of the scenario to convey it to the team. Bro, working for him or Kojima is probably wild, dude. That's just wild. It probably feels like every day you walk in and it's something new. Has to be, dog. Like, has to be. Like every day he walks in and he's just like, yeah, I got something new for you guys that I've been cooking. Nomura is the coolest guy ever. You'd never be bored working under this dude. 100%. You would never be bored. Because there'd always be something happening, like legitimately, you could tell. In the Kingdom Hearts series, there are foreshadowing elements that span multiple games. How do you keep track of that all? As I mentioned earlier, a lot of it is written in my notes, but I also rely on the staff to remember things. Since I enjoy watching videos, I check out gameplay videos and fan theories on YouTube as well. Rather than relying on my notes, I ask the staff members to remember how things were handled in past titles. So this is interesting. There is legitimately a chance that Nomura has watched my videos, by the way, like legitimately. And if I'm honest, that scares the crap out of me. It scares the crap out of me. But it's not the first time either that devs have watched my videos that I know of, and so it's always very humbling. Find out for sure, but it's always like, oh my gosh, like if I knew you guys were actually going to watch this, I would have very carefully worded a lot of things, right? And I don't think I ever really say anything like offensive to them in my videos or anything like that. I just mean more like, I'd make certain things like really clear and a lot more straightforward in terms of like the type of feedback I want them to hear. And so again, just noticing or just knowing that any devs could potentially be watching my videos, I always try to keep that in mind and send them the appropriate feedback. And this is something that I really try tell you guys about too. do is like, let's send the right feedback. Let's not send the wrong feedback. So something I was talking about the other day is that, like, for example, all right, when we talk about Final Fantasy 13, a lot of people just say, oh, it's too linear. That's the criticism. It's too linear. But that's not really the problem. Like if I had to list out like all the problems with that game, the fact that it is linear is probably like not even necessarily like a big problem, really. But then all that message sends to the devs is like, okay, we need to make open world games. And that's not necessarily what they need to do, right? Like, there are other problems with 16, like the pacing, right? The pacing issues, the lack of, like, you know, content to do on the side, etc., etc., etc. And so even with games I'm not the biggest fan of, I get really pissy whenever people go to criticize those games and they do it wrong, right? Like, there's a lot of feedback I have for like Final Fantasy 16 and how to make that game better, for example. But a lot of you will just be like, not turn-based, or no elemental weaknesses, right? And not to say that elemental weaknesses like shouldn't be like a thing, right? But like, we have to like really be careful about, like, you know, conveying like our feedback so that it's appropriate, so that they're actually listening to it and making choices based on the criticism that we're giving, and not just listening to belligerent talking points about the criticism, right? I do believe in making fair critique of games. We also need to articulate those critiques in a way that also has actionable advice, that they can actually take something from what we're saying, and not just like a bunch of like belligerent nonsense. So yeah, all of which is to say, the developers are watching the communities, what the communities are saying. They're watching the videos, what the content creators are saying. And so we do want to be careful in like the opinions that we're expressing, how we're expressing them. And it's also awesome. It's also wholesome in a way too, that they, you know, they get their energy to keep working on these games from us, from the community. And so we want to send them the right thing, the right messages. We want them to continue to make the games, and we want them to make them better with the appropriate feedback, and to also let them know too, not just like the things we didn't like, but also to let them know the parts that we loved, to let them know that this is the thing that we can't go without, right? Like, this is the part of the game that has to be there. Like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth having, you know, all the party members playable, right? Like that's a message that's worth sending, right? Like, we love playable party members in Final Fantasy. Like, that is something that no matter what kind of game you make, we just want there to be playable party members where there's different guys coming together to save the world. Because to us, that's what Final Fantasy is. Sending those messages, wording them right, letting them know, you know, clearly what we feel is really good. I know this is about theory videos, and I'm kind of going off on a tangent about wording things properly and making sure that we're like conveying the right feedback, but it's something that I think about a lot, communicating with the devs, so that we're not just baselessly shitting on stuff, but we're also to praising the right things and criticizing things appropriately. We can spend more than 30 seconds thinking about how to convey our criticisms, right? After the developers spend like 5 years working on a game, right? Exactly, like Lying Art, yeah. They spend 5 years working on the game, and then we don't even spend like half a second to like really consider our like really conveying like what we're conveying about the games. So you watch theory videos too. God, dude, he watches the theory videos, like purely just like statistically, because I do know that Square people, they do also watch the videos in English. So like just purely statistically, he has probably seen my Versus video, my Versus 13 VRM Rex video, because the Versus 13 VRM Rex videos that I made were like trending, and those got like hundreds of thousands of views. So statistically, he probably has seen my Versus 13 KH video. Like, and I'm not trying to like, you know, like headcanon that, but like just like looking at the numbers and like the popular theory videos, if he's watching it, like that probably has gotten his attention. Do you ever think they've guessed it, so I'll change it, or they don't understand it at all? I purely enjoy watching them. More often than not, I think it's not as complicated as they're making it. I'm often impressed by how closely they observe certain details. For instance, some people point out connections to the Final Fantasy series. Oh my god. Oh my god. No way. Bro, I'm convinced. But the writers are different for both, and no matter how much I'm involved in both, there's no connection between the two titles, dude. Some people. I don't know, dog. I don't know. Oops. I don't know, bro. I got a feeling. Again, maybe I'm bullshitting You know, maybe he's never seen any of this. Maybe I'm making this up. I don't know. I got a feeling that sentence in particular, he talking about me, bro. I know you talk about me, bro. I know it. At the time of the first Kingdom Hearts game, I don't think the current developments were planned. As the series has progressed, more settings and characters have been added, making it harder to keep things consistent. Are you always improvising to adjust for that? I did have a general direction I wanted to take things from the first game. As I mentioned before, I take notes about future developments. If something doesn't quite fit along the way, I'll improvise and adjust it on the spot. While details weren't fully fleshed out by the time of Kingdom Hearts 1 released in 2002, I had already planned out the next 2 or so installments, so by the time we were looking at Kingdom Hearts 3, I was also thinking about Kingdom Hearts 4 and beyond that. Well, that's definitely the case with Kingdom Hearts 3. Definitely the case with KH3 because you already know that all the seeds for KH4 have been laid out in Kingdom Hearts. I'm probably talking about Max's Theory videos. Well, this was in like this is specifically talking about Kingdom Hearts. But that being said, yeah, the devs do also watch Max's theory videos, and they watch other people's theory videos too. They do watch the English speaking worlds. That has always been my understanding, is that the devs also pay attention to what's going on over here. And for some videos, I believe they even have people that will translate the videos for them if they're really gaining attention. Yeah, even more so now. Yeah, because the Western market is like a huge chunk of their revenue now. So actually a bigger chunk than Japan. So they actually really do pay attention to Western devs and not Western devs, I'm sorry, Western customers, Western players, and like what they're saying. So it is a thing for sure. So they know basically. And also too, they understand English better than you guys may think. They aren't great at like speaking it per se, but they can understand almost everything you say to them. They're really good at interpreting English, which but I mean, like, if anyone's ever tried to like learn another language, or if you've grown up in proximity to another language, understanding the language is like super easy relative to like speaking it back to people, which can be really frustrating because you can understand everything a person just said, and then you feel like a idiot trying to speak back to them. A lot of people who are like semi-bilingual, who grew up around like relatives that speak like, you know, maybe your culture's language, but you didn't grow up like really learning it. You guys probably know exactly like what I'm talking about. You can sometimes see them react to English before the translator has said anything. Yeah, their English is good enough to like to understand the things. And then also too, I think, again, from my understanding, they also have like translators who will translate stuff for videos that they're like really interested in watching. So yeah, they keep up with like Maximilian Dude and those people and like what they're saying. Especially growing up in an ethnic community, it's an odd experience to know the language but have the words that feel like tar in your mouth. Yeah. Because input and output of a language are so different, man. It's so fundamentally different. Like, you can really understand a language and then you can go and speak, and then it's just gibberish. Me in Spanish, yeah. Kingdom Hearts is gonna sell more than Resident Evil 9. I mean, I don't know about that. But I'm sure Kingdom Hearts will sell, I mean, it'll sell pretty good. Resident Evil is just on fire, dude. Like, I don't know if anything's gonna like really sell as good as like an RE title right now. Because RE is just like, RE's insane right now. So let's go ahead and continue onward. From my knowledge, they have lurkers in streams looking for people's potential feedbacks, and they would translate them and send them on paper to Japan. Yeah, it's really common. It's really common. This year, the smartphone app Kingdom Hearts title, Kingdom Hearts Missing Link, is also set to release. Are you concerned that having key storylines in mobile and handheld games might make it hard for players to keep up with the story? Oh boy. Oh boy. I am glad that you asked. I am glad that you asked that, sir. What a great question. Has anyone ever actually asked him that straightforward in an interview? Because that's actually like a really great question. Here is the reply. Yes, I am concerned. That's why the Kingdom Hearts story we're telling in the app takes place far earlier in the timeline compared to the console games. However, as people say, the newly announced Kingdom Hearts 4 is basically Kingdom Hearts 13. Since everything is still connected, and it deepens the overall enjoyment of the series. That said, both Kingdom Hearts Missing Link and Kingdom Hearts 4 are designed to feel more like new titles rather than direct sequels. I feel like he watched Donkey's video specifically with that, right? Because there was a line in like Donkey's like Kingdom Hearts video where he was like, Kingdom Hearts 3 is Kingdom Hearts 10. You guys know what I'm talking about? Oh god. Legitimately though, I really hope that he never watched Donkey's video, because that would like I love Donkey, but like yeah, he doesn't need that stress on him, because I'm very sure that Donkey's humor doesn't translate culturally. A lot of people even here in the Western Hemisphere don't understand his humor, so yeah. Anyway, Kingdom Hearts Missing Link and Kingdom Hearts 4 are designed to feel more like new titles rather than direct sequels. For instance, this time we've brought new writers who have never worked on the Kingdom Hearts series before write parts of the scenario. While I'll make the final adjustments, having a writer unfamiliar with the series means it doesn't feel like a must-play continuation of the previous titles. Let's go! Since Kingdom Hearts Missing Link deals with a blank period of history, it's okay to have gaps in knowledge. Those who know the history will enjoy it more deeply. Oh man, let's go, dude. Let's go. For instance, this time we brought writers who have never worked on Kingdom Hearts before to write parts of the scenario. The real big takeaway means it doesn't feel like a must-play continuation of the previous titles, which means that it is a soft reboot of sorts. That is to say, this is not a discontinuation of KH. All the stuff that you played previously is canon, yes, but it is not going to be like, oh, you didn't play Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, 3, Birth by Sleep, Dream Drop Distance, then you don't deserve Kingdom Hearts 4, like many Sora PFPs will tell you on Twitter. That is not what they're going with. I am so happy. Based Nomura. Oh my god, let's go. That is what Kingdom Hearts 4, like, oh my god, bro. That is what Kingdom Hearts 4 needed than anything was for this. And I'm so glad that he's aware of it, right? Like, you know, starts off the reply, yes, I am concerned. So he does think about this, because for a while, people were thinking like, does bro even consider any of this? Does bro even think about it? Like, God, dude, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. That is the right thing to say. That is the right thing to do. Holy crap. So it's kind of like God of War 2018. Yeah, that's the impression that I'm getting. It's like God of War 2018, right? Where if you know God of War, there is an enhanced sense of enjoyment that you're going to get from playing God of War 2018. You do not need to know every single thing about God of War to play God of War 2018. All you need to know to play God of War 2018 is that Kratos was not always a particularly great guy, and now he has a new son, and he's trying to be a good guy, and he's trying to not be like his past, and that's all you really need to know for God of War 2018 to resonate. Also, new writers in general means that Kingdom Hearts has an opportunity to feel fresh. It's not going to be bogged down necessarily by a lot of things that had issues in the past. It means that we're going to be going in to this scenario with kind of a fresh take on the series. Like, I think like a fresh look at Kingdom Hearts is what we've desperately been needing, because even as someone who has played all the Kingdom Hearts games, aside from Union Cross, which apparently is the most important one, right? Because I didn't play the phone game or keep up with the phone game's translations. I got punished the most for that. Like, and then fans like unironically, oh my god, you didn't play the mobile game or keep up with the translations? They're on YouTube. I'm gonna tell you straight up. I do not want to read translations of a mobile game or watch the cutscenes on YouTube. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it for my favorite series, my favorite thing ever. I wouldn't want to do it. It's homework. I don't want to do homework to stay into my favorite game series. I don't want to do it. I don't think Kingdom Hearts as a series really warrants the need for it to be a series to necessarily require that much like external work outside of just playing the games and enjoying them. And I'm not going to play a gacha to keep up with the story. I'm not going to do that, straight up. So I'm very glad to hear that Kingdom Hearts 4 does not require that I do that. I'm very happy. With like with long-running manga series, where it's challenging to catch up from volume 1, the Kingdom Hearts series has faced a similar issue due to the number of titles. How do you plan to attract new players? I wish I knew. As I mentioned earlier, I see Missing Link in Kingdom Hearts 4 as a reset of sorts. I see Missing Link and Kingdom Hearts 4 as a reset of sorts. Let's go, chat. Let's go. For all the Sora PFPs that try to tell me he's not going to do that, fuck wrong. That's what my man is doing. At the very least, if he doesn't do it, he acknowledges that it's what he should be doing. Hopefully he does hold to it, but at the very least, he acknowledges that, hey, we cannot keep sending people back to play a PlayStation 2 game in like 10 or 20 years. I cannot get my nephew to sit down and play janky Kingdom Hearts 1, a game that was made before he was born, and a whole bunch of mobile games and a whole bunch of like cutscenes from phone games that are no longer playable, just so that he can access one title. Dude, it's not a very realistic expectation. It is why most game series don't do that. Anyway, continuing onward. As I mentioned, I see Missing Link in Kingdom Hearts 4 as a reset of sorts. With Kingdom Hearts 3, I felt like things came to an end. So I intended to reset things by bringing in new writers and designing it to be more accessible to newcomers. We even redesigned the logo with that in mind. Oh my god, gatekeeping Kingdom Hearts fans will not be getting their way. God, I'm so glad that he didn't cave to the people that want to make you basically not enjoy the series, right? They want to make you do all this other stuff. If Kingdom Hearts 4 looks cool to you, play Kingdom Hearts 4. Play Kingdom Hearts 4. Jump in at Kingdom Hearts 4. Like, if it looks like a cool game, if you want to play it, if you think Kingdom Hearts 4 is like an exciting game for you, then let Kingdom Hearts 4 be your first Kingdom Hearts. Do not tell people they cannot start with Kingdom Hearts 4. Don't tell people that they can't enjoy the latest Kingdom Hearts game. Even if you do need to go back and play the other titles, let them hop in at the title that interests so that they can get into the series. And then if they really like it, they'll go back and do their homework and they'll catch up on all this stuff. But just let people, this is what I've wanted to hear. This change will make things more fresh. Yeah. I've never played KH, so maybe I'll start with 4. Start with 4, dude. Start with KH4. Do you think 4 will be same day on PC? I hope so. Zach Pope, thank you so much for the $20 super chat. I really appreciate that. Happy birthday, you beautiful man. Oh, thank you so much, Zach. Really appreciate that. Thank you for supporting the channel and being here with us today. And I appreciate the birthday wishes. But I love telling people they're not allowed to have fun. I know. I think people enjoy that more than they enjoy actually playing video games. So the logo change had that meaning behind it. I think those that saw the ending of Kingdom Hearts 3 will understand that it concluded with Sora's story left in that state, as a way of resetting things to some extent. Kingdom Hearts 4 should be more approachable than previous entries. Of course, I believe longtime fans of Kingdom Hearts will feel when they play it, but we're making it with the hope that new players will also enjoy it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. In a previous interview, you mentioned that Kingdom Hearts 4 will spend a lot of time in Quadratum, a field similar to Shibuya. Why did you bring a more realistic setting into a work that has always been a complete fantasy? There are several reasons, but I personally prefer worlds that feel like they might exist rather than something that's too unreal. I feel the same way with movies. If the world is too detached from reality, it's hard to get immersed. That's why I find a setting like Shibuya, where it's based on reality but not the real Shibuya, to be dreamlike. For me, it feels more in line with my concept of fantasy rather than a complete fictional world. Hope I'm saying your name right. Brarios, is that right? Briarios? Thank you so much for the super chat. Congrats on a new level. Tomberry Prince, appreciate it so much. That makes a lot of sense, and I think that we also see that too in Final Fantasy Versus 13, and the reason he set that there, and we also see that in The World Ends With You. For example, the interviewer then says, in manga, for example, Tokyo serves as the setting in Tokyo Ghoul, Shibuya in Jujutsu Kaisen. Perhaps game players and manga readers alike have a preference for fantasy that's closer to reality. I think so too. Maybe it's easy to relate to. Also, there have been plenty of works set in medieval high fantasy worlds, and I've always felt it was okay to leave those to other creators. We released The World Ends With You set in Shibuya back in 2007, but now there are many other works set in Shibuya. It feels like everyone's come to Shibuya. Bro said, I made it popular. Indeed, there does seem to be an increase in works set in real-world locations in Japan. Speaking of the unreality within reality, in Kingdom Hearts, there's the monologue at the beginning that goes, I don't understand this world, whether it's real or not. The English translation is a bit different for that, and the English localization. Was the concept of Quadratum already in mind at that time? I think that was actually part of the interviewer question, but anyway, he says here, the name Quadratum didn't exist back then, but the concept was already there. It was something I had been building up for a long time, knowing that one day we'd arrive at this point. So it's a 20-year-long foreshadowing finally coming full circle. This will be the last question. Do you already know how the Kingdom Hearts series will conclude? To be realistic, I'm approaching retirement, so it's starting to feel like a race between whether I retire or I finish the series first. That said, I'm making Kingdom Hearts 4 with the intention of moving toward the conclusion of the story. And I think that's actually the end. Thank you for sharing these valuable insights. Final Fantasy VII Remake Trilogy project is reaching its climax. We also can't take our eyes off Nomura as he continues to work on the Kingdom Hearts series. So yeah, Nomura is looking at retirement here. How old is he? If I can find it out. He's 53. He's 53. So he's still relatively young, but I see what he means by he's planning this out for retirement, right? Because you think about retirement being in like your mid to late 60s. However, if you think about game development and how long game development takes, and the fact that these titles can take like 7 years of development, if you really think about it, if he wants to actually wrap Kingdom Hearts up in like anytime soon, he would essentially need to start thinking about that right now versus thinking about that when Kingdom Hearts like 6 is out, right? Like if he wants to actually work up to a conclusion of the story and be there for that conclusion, then yeah, he needs to start right now. Given how long we've had radio silence on KH4, do you think it was announced too early? Nomura kind of even like bluntly said that it was announced too early, right? Like if I recall correctly, he was still kind of like, yeah, we announced it like really early on purpose. So I definitely think it was announced too early because it's been like 2 years and I don't think we're seeing it this year, and I don't even know if we're seeing it next year, but I do think that next year we'll start to get the lead up to Kingdom Hearts 4. Like we'll start to get trailers and stuff. I think Kingdom Hearts 4 is 2026, like if I had to take a guess, because if it was a year out, we would already be seeing the marketing ramp up for Kingdom Hearts 4, right? We'd already be seeing new trailers and stuff like that. I think it's 2026 for Kingdom Hearts 4. I think Missing Link, the mobile game, I think we're going to start seeing that. I think Missing Link is actually probably not this year. Missing Link will probably drop next year. Like I think 2025 is when we'll start seeing Missing Link, and then Missing Link will lead into the hype Kingdom Hearts 4, which will be 2026. Missing Link at TGS. That's kind of our next topic, right? It's talking about. We're gonna get to that in just a second. Thanks, I've been watching you since 2022. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for being around. He's been working since the early 90s for Square. That's over 30 years. I'm sure most people who work that long want to retire before their mid 60s. That number is what the government wants you to work till. Yeah, that's another thing too, is that I'm sure that Nomura has made enough money as well, because, you know, not only working for Square at a very high up position, I'm sure they pay him quite well. I mean, he could go anywhere and do anything, and he's also generated the most amount of intellectual property for the company, like objectively he has, and so he is worth a lot. And if Nomura was ever looking for a job, so many people who would want to hire him, and so I'm sure he's paid quite well. I'm sure that retiring for him is really easy to do at this point, and that he probably collects royalties for a lot of his works as well. You know, not to mention that he also does freelance work too, right? Like he'll draw works for other characters like Xenoblade 2 he did some work on, and the Nomura Miku, and he did the collaboration for Batman, and so he's got a lot of other things that he makes money on as well. So I'm sure that he can relatively retire pretty easily right now, even if he wanted to. For him, continuing to work is more about, well, he's like, I'm still young and I still have creative ambition, and so you know, I want to continue to work on the IPs that I've created and fostered. So KH3 was also announced too early, if I recall. I mean, every Nomura game is also announced. Like, they always announce his games really early. Most companies only require you work 15 to 20 years to be eligible for retirement, right? Yeah, the Nomura Batman, yeah, he's done a lot of stuff, a lot of freelance work. So, but yeah, it really is, it would be really unfortunate to see him retire. I've always wanted to interview him, and I'm putting that energy out there, because the last time I said I really want to interview somebody, I just said it on Twitter, like just publicly. I was like, I really want to interview Hironobu Sakaguchi, and I said that on a whim. I was not expecting to actually interview Hironobu Sakaguchi a couple of weeks later from me actually making that post, and the opportunity came up, and then someone informed me like, hey, Mistwalker is taking interviews right now. Go ahead and hit up Sakaguchi and he'll do an interview with you. And I was like, no way. And so I reached out to Sakaguchi, and when he was down and we did the interview, and that was crazy because I was like, I couldn't believe that I got to talk to Hironobu Sakaguchi. It was like most craziest thing ever, right? Because you spend basically your whole life reading interviews that people have conducted with this guy, and then suddenly you're the guy doing the interview, and it's really cool. It's like it was insane for me. What I'm really hoping is that Kingdom Hearts 4 coming up, I'd love to be able to interview Nomura. I think that like there is nothing that my teenage self would feel more fulfilled by than knowing I got to interview. So that would be crazy. That would be awesome. So I'm gonna put that energy out there. If anyone knows anything, or if you know a person, if you know a person who knows a person, anything else like that, yeah, please tell them to reach out to me or have me reach out to them, and that would be great because I want to be able to talk to this man before he retires. That being said, I can only see Nomura being like a Hayao Miyazaki or like a Hironobu Sakaguchi when it comes to retiring. These are people who are creatives down to their bone, and while they may get tired of working, because who doesn't, creating things is like what they do. Like that's who they are fundamentally, and it's so hard for me to imagine them not creating. You know what I'm saying? Because that's who they are. It's like it's in their DNA, it's in their cells, their blood. I don't think they would ever like stop creating. And so Nomura, even if he were to retire, within like 10 years, I cannot see him stopping. I cannot see him being like, okay, he is absolutely going to continue to be an influence. That being said, what the hell would Square do without him, right? Because Square relies on him so much. I hope as he is cultivating more creative talent, I hope so, because they really do. They rely on him and his IP and his brand name quite a lot. And of course, yeah, we got the UK here, awesome. Yeah, Square Enix relies on Nomura a lot, and it's really hard for me to imagine like what they would do without him, right? Because he is the driving force behind Creative Studio One, and it's almost impossible for me to imagine what that studio would be without him. It's like, what's gonna happen to like FromSoft when Hidetaka Miyazaki eventually retires, right? Like, what are they gonna do? Aging is very depressing, guys. I say this on my birthday. Aging is depressing. Aging sucks. Here we are. I'm turning 33. And let me tell you, getting older is not fun. Not fun. We all know it. But that is what we are. We are mortal creatures that live and die, get old. Me too. I hope her being promoted to an oversight position in 14th. Ishikawa was working on something big. I don't know what it is yet. Hello, I'm in on outreach on behalf of Tetsuya Nomura. He said he'd like to do an interview with you, Ryan. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. Beltima, thank you. And when the fuck is Miyamoto retiring? bro has been like, I don't even know. I actually think that Miyamoto will actually like continue to work for like the rest of his life. Like, I don't think that. I feel like Miyamoto is just not retiring. At this rate, I think Aonuma will actually retire before Miyamoto does. There's always a spiritual successor, of course, yeah. With Nomura, I don't think you can't, man, you really can't replace like what he does. Because it's just like, he doesn't just design the games, he also creates the characters and has like this iconic vision. So much of Square, like intellectual property, the very idea of Square is so fundamentally tied to a lot of his creations and a lot of his works. Most of the most iconic Square Enix things that you think of are designed by him, his idea. He's had some type of influence, for better or for worse. And so it's really hard to kind of detangle the collective Square Enix identity without him. And so, I do think if he does retire, within the next 10 years, I would really wonder, what would happen to Square and how they would continue to really maintain their, that sense of identity. You can't really imagine Square without Sora or Cloud, like those sorts of characters now have become so intertwined with the Square Enix identity that it's like, it's inseparable. Maybe if you go all the way back to like the early days of Squaresoft, that's like the only way you can really think of like Square without him, right? But like for the most part, the Square Enix modern identity is deeply tied to, but that's also good in a way because we have like a lot of young upcoming creators, and I would love to see them also get their opportunity to shine and be wonderful creators who are are able to contribute their own intellectual property, their own art designs, and I'm sure they'll all do well. Eventually, you do have to let the younger generation take over and continue to maintain these IPs.